You're listening to Fifth Dimension Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, here on FifthDimensionRadio.com, and you know what time it is, and if you don't, it's time for 10 Cent Beer Night, the official sports show of FifthDimensionRadio.com, every Wednesday, 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, here at FifthDimensionRadio.com, YouTube, Facebook Live, whatever. We're all over the place on the Fifth Dimension Radio pages there. We are filming here on May 5th, happy Cinco de Mayo, but this is for the May 7th show here, so anything that's happened between now, May 6th, and when you wake up in the morning to early evening on May 7th, all that time frame there, I will not have known what has happened. So I'll just talk about what we do know. So I'm in a little bit of a goofy mood right now. I have to be a little bit chippier, whatever the word you want to use. After, of course, Cavs' first playoff loss of the 2025 playoffs was yesterday. No need to panic or anything. One, I had mentioned before, our last 10 Cent Beer Night, we didn't know if it was going to be officially the Pacers or the Bucks. We speculated the Pacers there. And if you've listened to the show before, I've told Bob, who's not with us today because he's in Myrtle Beach. And I will confirm that he did make it down there safely. He was bragging about where his the beach was and his hotel room there. So everybody got down there safe, and Bob was probably golfing and in the best mood possible this morning. Hopefully, golf can get to you in other ways. So, you might like the scenery, but you might not like your game that morning, and that will ruin your morning, day, and after. It's being bad at golf, and I'm horrible at golf, okay? But being bad at golf is like it's like NFL Sunday. Whatever your team or fantasy football team does makes your whole week, but if they lose, it ruins everything. So, like, if you have a bad golf outing, your whole day is ruined and everything is ruined. So, all that being said, explaining the tactics of old golfers, we hope Bob and his friends do not have any bad days out there, and that, they get back up here safely, but they enjoy themselves. But I have told Baseball Bob, back to what I was saying about the Pacers, all season long, not just postseason, all season long, this was one of the best teams in the East, and I was just as, if not a little less, scared of them than I was the Boston Celtics, because I knew what Indiana was capable of, and I knew they wanted it too, similar with the Cavs. It's a loaded team, great starting five, great bench. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, okay, and got eliminated by Boston. Cavs kind of overshadowed them this year. Because honestly, I told myself, I thought with Atkinson being his first season, I knew the Cavs were going to be top four in the East. But I said, if it's not Boston number one, it's Indiana. I said that at the beginning of the year. And it was actually the Cavs. And Indiana was sitting up there at third place there. So not too far, and you had Boston in between. So, but this Indiana team was very close to the finals last year is what I'm trying to say. They want to get back in that conversation, so they're going to bring it. So I had this series going to 6 games, so I knew Indiana was going to... I had Indiana winning 2 games, okay? So they win this first one here. It's not going to be a meltdown. What's great about this Cavs team this year, and I know we haven't seen the playoffs yet, but what we saw in the regular season, if they lost a game, which was not many, they only lost 7 home games, 5 of which I attended. Besides the point, when they have lost, they've made immediate adjustments and picked themselves right back up. They had a little bit of a funk there. I think it was like late February when they went that West Coast trip, and they did not do so well. They went like 3-5 or something. overall in the West, and just got. It was the first time we actually saw this team get beat up a little bit. But I mean that everybody goes through that in the season. You can even look at some of the best teams with the best records. There's always that little time period they go a little bit cold, and then they pick it back up. I mean everybody does, but we've seen them pick themselves back up bigger and stronger than ever. Now some people might say, well, we didn't have Darius Garland yesterday, and it was like, okay, that would have helped. I will say that. I mean, that's our all-star point, two-time all-star point guard, all-star this past year, and he helps run the floor, and he gives you another option because he's very good player. He's good with the basketball, driving, shooting, making crazy layups at anything, long range shooting. So you can imagine, well, what if there was like at least 24 more points there? Maybe they pull it out, assuming he would have had. That's about what he's averaging in the playoffs right now. It's about 24 mark. Here's the other thing too, is they didn't have shots going down yesterday. Okay, it was a rare day in that it's like they were taking good shots, they just weren't falling. Pacers couldn't miss. I think my criticism towards the Cavs with that was they should have been on those guys like Lou. And I get eventually they're going to run a play and somebody's going to have an open shot. It's the name of the game. But you have Andrew Nembhard. He hits like 7-8 threes yesterday, something like that. I don't have the stats in front of me right now. But he hits like about the 4th three. You would think you would stick somebody on him tighter. They let this guy take 4, 5, 6 threes. He makes the majority of them. And they just leave him wide open. This guy's been hitting threes the entire game. Why would you do it? He ended up being the key factor of how the Pacers finally broke through in the game, created a big enough lead to seal the deal there. And it's got to be tighter defense there, not just on the low post, which they did very well. Overall, I felt they did well yesterday, but you got to just guard the perimeter tight too, because this Indiana team can shoot threes very well. They got guys that can do that, who were literally brought in to specifically just play defense and shoot threes. So you at the city you have Rick Carlisle, who is the coach of the Indiana Pacers, okay? And this is a very successful coach. This is a Hall of Fame coach. He won the championship with the Dallas Mavericks back in 2011. If Cavs fans remember, we were still freshly angry at LeBron for leaving at the time. Mavericks win the championship, upset the Heat, and everybody around here was so happy. That was his team, okay? I bring up because the guy's a winner. He's a very knowledgeable basketball coach. He's got a great winning record. He knows how to get to the finals and win it, even, especially with a very hyped young LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh team. Now, mind you, he had an older team, which in the NBA is a good thing. You want experience. That will, if the majority of your team's experience, that will take you further than most of the league already. But this guy, I think if there's one coach that could potentially outcoach Kenny Atkinson, or give him a run for his money, I should say, in the East, I would say Rick Carlisle would be that guy. So, with all that being said, the Indiana has the pieces to, God forbid, and I mean God forbid, end the Cavs season earlier than we would hope for. Now, the Cavs, however, again, looking this year, Indiana was the only team to beat them 3 times, but 2 of those 3 times it was a bench game, okay? So, and by the way, the bench almost beat them both times. And on top of it, Pacers have, they're a little more up-tempo than most teams still left in the playoffs, I should even say. So they are going to come at the Cavs fast, as the Cavs would come at anybody else fast. We were talking about that tempo change that Kenny Atkinson brings to the table. And, I mean, adjustment to tempo change, which I bring up Kenny Atkinson, because that was one thing he really wanted to establish in the guys outside individual roles and characteristics. And that was something that J.B. Bickerstaff, when he was with the Cavs past couple of years, really did not do well with, I should say, was changing the tempo in certain moments of the game to give yourself the edge. And now we see it with this Cavs team. It's worked perfectly. Perfect. It was the right system for this team. But along with that being said, the Pacers do something similar. And they're going to try to catch the Cavs off guard at all times. So Cavs have to be getting back on defense. They have to not be turning over the ball. That drove me crazy yesterday. The amount of turnovers. You want to automatically lose a game, just keep on turning over the ball. Let's say the other team could be shooting 20%. If you're turning over the ball like crazy, you give yourself a better chance to lose than their poor shooting. You know. But as far as yesterday goes, like, it's going to be a wake-up call. Cavs are at home again on Tuesday. And with... Sorry, I just drew a brain fart. I was reading a statistic here. They're going to be back at home, is what I was trying to say. They're going to be back at home. They're going to come at them even harder, I think. They're going to make some mental adjustments. They've seen what this team can do. You just got to guard the perimeter heavier, and you got to knock down your own shots too. I mean, I know Donovan Mitchell played very well yesterday. Jared Allen played very well. Evan Mobley did. Everybody else, it was just very inconsistent, and you know, there was a lot of heads-up defense plays, because defense wasn't overall bad. There was a lot of good too. A lot of steals. We were forced their own turnovers too. So that was you got to play that kind of defense all the time, especially at this stage of the game here. So I was trying to find, let's see, game 2 here. Let me go back here, because I wanted to read off when the other games were, because we're going to have, let's see here. So Tuesday, you already know the result by the time you hear this, but that's game 2. Game 3 is on Friday at ESPN, 7:30 p.m. And game 4 will be on Sunday, 8 p.m. on TNT and Max. And then if there's a game 5 next Tuesday at TNT, and then a game 6 would be Thursday on ESPN. So they're rotating the ESPN TNT. Well, for the most part, TNT's got back-to-back games here. I know our local broadcast here at FanDuel TV network. That crew is done for the season, because Cavs are now at the point where they're going to be on nationwide the rest of the way. So I always think that's interesting. You're the crew that carries the team all year. You're their biggest fans, and then when they get deep enough in the playoffs, nope, you don't have to work. We don't need you anymore. We have national TV coming in. No, I'm sure it's not like that at all, but it's the name of the game, NBA playoffs here. But Cavs will be fine. Let them make their adjustments here. And, they were eventually going to lose one, and maybe it's a good wake-up call. And it wasn't a bad game either. I'll say that. I think I will blame the officiating a bit, though. Sounds like a lot of missed calls. Bad missed calls. Not just little stuff. I'm talking about people physically getting elbows and arms flung at them and all kinds of stuff. And that will kind of grind your gears a little bit too as a player. But I'm very confident the Cavs will turn the ship around here. It's one game, but you also don't want to go down to Indiana 2-0. Down 0-2, excuse me. Go win game 2 at home, defend your court, and then go down in Indiana and at least steal one from there. If you could steal both, fantastic. You set yourself up. but at least walk away with one before you come back to Cleveland. Because if they win Game 2 there, they will be for sure coming back to Cleveland for Game 5. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, yeah, it will be fine. I was worried about DeAndre Hunter there for a little bit when he went down yesterday, but he came back out and everything, and it's amazing. I don't know the severity of that injury, but they made it sound like he may have broke something in his hand, and then he comes back a little bit out there later. And it wasn't medical staff or anybody said that. There was speculation the way he was grabbing at his arm and everything, and the amount of pain he was in. But no, it seems like he's okay as of now. As far as the Darius Garland thing, will he be back? He was questionable for Game 1. Did not happen. And there's reports now coming in that Cavs are legit concerned about the toe. And I'm sitting there going, is this Jared Allen's rib all over again? I was like, from last year, they got to make it work. Whether he's there or not, they got to find a way to make it work there. But the one thing I will say, my biggest compliment towards the team is I was thinking back to the LeBron James days at this time of the playoffs and everything. There was always fear, no matter what round they were in, unless they were up by big points. What's the team going to do when we take LeBron out? Put him on the bench and rest him up. They were afraid to take him out because the team always kind of fell back. With this Cavs team, you can take Donovan Mitchell out and your bench behind you so strong. They're either doing better or they're doing just as good. And I think that's what's made a big difference here with this Cavs team than the rest of the NBA. And that's why even with somebody like Darius Garland out, it's like, hey, okay, we got your back. We'll fill the void. We'll do everything we can do without you and go from there. Try to win that ball game. So there you go. So your NBA playoff bracket real quick because I got about less than a minute here for the first segment. Thunder swept the Grizzlies. Nuggets beat the Clippers in 7. So Thunder and Nuggets in the Western semis there. Timberwolves beat the Lakers in 5 games. And then Warriors beat the Rockets in Game 7. Warriors won 103-89. And then you want to talk about disappointment. Rockets second seed in the West, and they're already eliminated. And then New York in the East, the New York Knicks defeated the Pistons in 6 games. Celtics defeated the Magic in 5 games there. So it'll be Knicks and Celtics this week. This round. So Thunder, Nuggets, Timberwolves, Warriors, Cavs, Pacers. Pacers lead 1-0 right now. And then Knicks, Celtics. So that's what's left there. So the whole dream scenario of will LeBron play the Cavs in the finals this year is officially not happening because, well, Lakers lost. And it was very good. I got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Guardians. Some heroics, put some wins on the board. Was it enough to keep on pace with the Tigers? We'll talk about that and more. And welcome back. Ted's at Barrier Night. Here's our second segment here. I'm Seth. Already mixing my words up here. But I will not mix up my information regarding the Cleveland Guardians' very successful week this past week. That was a kind of corny thing to say, but whatever. They went 5-2. Okay. They won the first series against the Twins 3-1. They dropped game 1, but in game 2 there, you had Kyle Mazzarato with the walk-off home run there in the 9th. Mazzardo, I think is how you say his name there. Zardos. I didn't even see the N. I apologize. But that's their first baseman now that Josh Naylor's out of Cleveland. but they won. They took Twins 3-1, which I said they probably should do. They went and played the Blue Jays, and then took 2 out of 3 there and won that weekend series. Sunday, May 4th, yes, on Star Wars Day there, they were down 4-0, came back and won because I'm going to try to get this guy's name right too. Dan Schneemann hit a... Oh, wait, hold on. That was doubled. Oh, no, they did not. I apologize. That's not how they won Sunday. They won... They were down 3-1 on Saturday is what it was. Wow, I got it mixed up. I do apologize. They were down 3-1. Daniel Schneemann hits a grand slam, which leads them to a 5-3 victory there. So, late inning heroics earned 2 out of their 5 victories this past week there. And Mr. Schneemann had an overall great weekend for the Guards there. Because the following game, he even got an RBI double there, adding more to his stats. I mean, yeah, pretty impressive. And we're talking about, me and Bob were kind of concerned with center field there. You know, they trade Tyler Freeman. There hasn't been consistently a choice that made sense in center field, unless we've talked about the idea of moving Quan out there, but it sounds like they're not going to consider that. Then the Schneemann guy comes in, and so far he's holding the fork down. Yeah, he's being one of their more clutch and reliable bats, especially with runners in scoring position. And he's becoming an unsung hero. I don't know if Cleveland knew they had. So there you have it there. And especially this past week, I know Jose Ramirez got a little bit banged up. I guess he's okay. He's day to day. He's been playing. There's games he's been sitting. So they're winning these games without Jose Ramirez, which is a little bit more impressive because that's your best player on the team there. And you're keeping the games close too, because some of the pitching, is already giving up more runs than they did last year. Individual stats speaking, not just Class A. And they're still finding a way to win these games, so that's awesome. They are 20, but despite the great week they had this past week, they're 20-14. Despite the great week, they are still in second place to the Tigers in the American League Central. I know it's early. We're entering our second month, and I did notice. I play the fantasy sports. I just had my fantasy women's basketball draft this past weekend. I had one football dynasty league draft already. I prefer to wait in August, but this one league couldn't wait. We actually had a lot of fun, though. We really did. So our 2 early drafts right there. And I'm in fantasy baseball teams, and you want to get to a certain score average because basically it's an ESPN league. If you get 300 plus points in a whole week, that's usually considered a very solid score, okay? And I've noticed my scoring has gone up the past couple weeks than it did from the beginning. And it's not, I didn't do much moving around the players. It's the players now adjusting and warming up to the season, and now they're batting better, they're pitching better. At least the players I have. But they put up some higher scores, and usually that's kind of normal. You kind of go in the low end. Everybody's, with the exception of a few players, of course. Nobody's really playing up to standard in the beginning, and then all of a sudden the weather gets warmer, the bats get warmer, the arms get warmer. You're headed to May, and about mid-May, you have an idea of pretty much what you're going to see from guys. Not for the whole season. I know it's a long season, and we've seen guys that have had a killer first half of the season, go in the second half and have a dreadful performance. It's happened. Again, it's a long season, but I guess what I'm trying to say is in mid-May, that's when we also start voting for the All-Stars. So you have an idea who your All-Stars for the year already are. So this is when baseball is starting to get really good. Not that it's ever bad, because it's the best sport in sports, but this is where it's going to get a lot of fun. It really is. I'm looking very forward to it. I would say, if I were to rank the opening day, around All-Star game, second half, what are the best times of the year to watch baseball? All right, first would be the postseason, World Series. That's some of the best games you'll ever see. Second, I would say, is in September, the deep run trying to clinch those playoff spots. Third, I would say this time of the year, because this is where the excitement really builds up. I mean, you have the opening day, but once opening day's passed, they kind of like, oh yeah, we kind of just don't care anymore, it seems like. I don't think that's necessarily the attitude, but that's what it comes off of. This is where, the Stanley Cup's happening now, so hockey's wrapping up, NBA playoffs are happening, and this is where baseball kind of makes their move to get a little bit of noise out in the media, sports media, I should say, and stay as a hotter conversation compared to all that. Because baseball, it's unfair, I think, at times, because when you start off, you have that one weekend in March, opening day weekend, it's all yours, okay? And then you go into the season, and then NHL playoffs start. NBA playoffs start getting talked about. Then you have to go up against the NFL draft. Okay? And then you go into June, and now you're going up against the NBA finals and the NBA draft. All right? Then there's July. Okay? You get 2 weeks in July. The week before the All-Star break during Independence Day week. And then the week after. I should say you get 3 weeks, technically. You get All-Star week, and then you get the week after All-Star week. After that, football training camp starts, and then all the attention's back off of you. So baseball does not get the fair rep that it deserves. Anyway, there's my rant against me and baseball for the day there. And the American League Central, I said, Tigers ahead a game and a half from the Guards, 22-13. Guards are 20-14. Royals 19-16 overall. Been playing well of late. 8 of their last 10. Twins are 15-20. White Sox are 10-24. In the American League East, the Yankees are 19-15. Aaron Judge just absolutely annihilating the ball these days, hitting well over 400. One of the home run leaders, as he always is already. So there you have it. They've actually, most of the American League East, except for the Rays, have dropped games the past couple days. Red Sox in second, 18-18. Blue Jays are 16-18. Along with the Rays are also 16-18. Rays been playing better than everybody else though. Orioles at 13-20. In the American League West, the Seattle Mariners are at 20-13 and still playing very well. 8 of their last 10 for sure. Second place, the Sacramento Athletics, 19-16. Yes, you heard that right. They are playing good ball. Have won 7 of the past 10. Been very impressive there. Mason Miller had one bad game this past week, but for the most part, he's been the best closer so far this season. Astros at third at 17-16. Rangers in fourth at 17-18. Angels at last at 13-20. In the National League East, the Mets are on top, are first at 22-13 here. Second are the Philadelphia Phillies at 19-15, 2.5 games back. Both teams have been playing very well of late. Decently of Nets. Phillies more than the Mets. Washington Nationals are 16-19, are in third. Braves are in fourth at 15-18. The bats are starting to heat up though in Atlanta. Austin Riley and Ozzie Albies having good weeks this past week. And then you have the Miami Marlins in last at 13-20. And we do have some breaking news. I saw this morning actually. The 2027 NFL Draft will be held in Washington, D.C., and the picks will be made in front of the Washington Monument. So there you have it. This is coming after Washington Commanders have announced they were going back to D.C. They're going to build the new stadium out there. So back to baseball real quick. I got a few more minutes here in the second segment. National League Central, Chicago Cubs 21-14 are in first there. Too bad baseball Bob's not here to talk about, but his Cincinnati Reds are 18-17, and they're 3 games behind the Cubs and are in second place there. Reds just both sides of the ball, hitting and pitching, looking better and better. It seems every week there. Terry Francona's effect is really shedding on him now. Third is the Milwaukee Brewers at 17-18. Fourth is the St. Louis Cardinals at 16-19, and then you have the Pittsburgh Pirates at dead last in the NL Central at 12-23. In the National League West, the LA Dodgers have reclaimed the top of the division at 23-11. They won 7 of their past 10. They had a great week last week, winning both series against Miami and Atlanta. Then you have San Diego Padres a half game behind them at 22-11, and then San Francisco Giants a half game behind the Padres at 22-13. Arizona Diamondbacks are 18-16 and in fourth, and in fifth at 6-28 is the Colorado Rockies. All the teams in Major League Baseball have won double-digit games except for the Rockies. That's gotta sting. That's terrible there. But I meant to mention the Guardians' upcoming games this week. By the time you hear this, they've actually ended the series with the Nationals in Washington, our nation's capital there. So the Commanders would join the Nationals as far as playing in D.C. there. So that should be a lot of fun. Just having that announcement there, the 2 teams that got away from the Indian names, and then they both end up being the center of attention. There, you get it there. If you don't get it, Guards against the Nationals in Washington. They should win that series. I would say 2-1. I will say it's not going to come easy though. Nationals are underrated this year. Then they're home this weekend, and they're going to be against the Philadelphia Phillies at home. Could be a great turnout weekend. Okay, about when they started 2 years ago, putting more international games, or they made you playing the whole league, not just sections of the National League for interleague play or anything. When they had the Philadelphia Phillies in town, that was their best sold games in years. And we're probably talking, they said, since like 2018 series against the Reds. So there's a lot of Phillies fans here in the area. So that's going to be a good, well turned out weekend. The question is it going to be mostly Philly fans or mostly Cleveland fans? Attendance at home seems to not been crazy, and I understand it's been cold and rainy too. And then by the time our next 10-cent beer night, they will be at home against the Milwaukee Brewers there. So that will be an interesting series. So you have Washington, who I think they could beat out. But then you have Philly, who is that's going to be tough. I mean, if you're not careful, you might get swept there. And then with the Brewers, I think that one they can edge them out. I really do. I didn't see this before. Sunday night's game against Philly in Cleveland. That is the ESPN game of the week. So that's 7:10 p.m. ESPN will broadcast that one nationally. So there you go. So Guards and Phillies on national TV. So that's awesome there. I would say for the Guards, keep doing what you're doing. Stay focused. Stay healthy. I told people, as far as this season goes for them, it's going to take instant growth for the younger guys, and it's going to take some patience, but it's going to be their will and their fight that they have through Stephen Vogt in that dugout. something that we saw last year, that never give up attitude and find a way to do your part to help win the game. That's going to be the key to their whole season, because you're looking at how close some of these games are, which I'll give their pitching the credit. They didn't have a terrible week this past week. Like I said, all the games were close. Hitting did just enough, and it did just enough at the end, because they're like, we're not going to walk, we're going to go down swinging, you know. Pun intended. They're going to go down swinging, okay? They're going to fight till the end. And, like, I know people listen and it sounds like the same thing the Cavs are saying. It sounds like the same thing the Browns are saying, but that's the attitude you need to have in sports, and I think that's what the Guardians are saying, too. And now, yeah, their schedule's going to get tougher, and this is going to be a real test. It really is. You're going to be playing some of the tougher National League teams, and then you got some of the tougher American League teams around the corner. Against some of the better American League teams, they didn't do so hot. I'll say this past week, look, they beat a Minnesota team they should have beat. Taking 3 out of 1, perfect. And then this Blue Jays team was a good team. Not a great team, but a team that could stay in the playoff conversation all year long and might fall short. So, I mean, you took 2 out of 3 against them. That's pretty solid. You know, I mean, you beat a good team at the end of the day. So, not as far as a first month goes for the Guards, pretty solid. Like, they're putting in the work. I got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about all this Browns gossip, Nick Chubb, and then just some more post-draft thoughts. That and more. Stay tuned. And welcome back to our last segment here, 10 Cent Beer Night, in the FifthDimensionRadio.com studios here in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. Kind of nice day today. We're going to see a storm, but like the temperature I'm completely digging. Absolutely love 70 degrees. I do like it hot. I look forward to the 80s and 90s. Call me crazy. Looks like it's going to be kind of a drizzly first couple days of the week, and then it's just going to be temperate but cloudy. So for Guards home games, it's going to be a little dark out there. Some dark clouds that kind of like it's going to rain a little bit, but then it's not kind of look. And then it gets just it feels good outside, and then it gets really cold fast. That's the kind of week we're going to have this week. But the kind of week I want to avoid when it comes to the Cleveland Browns is just, how should I say, the post-draft conversation, attitude, and direction of the team here, because people that have followed around the situation, you know, we drafted a pair of running backs that impacted the roster. We've drafted a pair of quarterbacks that impacted the roster, in the plenty of conversations we're having here. The first thing that's going to come to mind that's talked about is Nick Chubb going to return to the Cleveland Browns, and they've been back and forth. They've been talking since day one. I don't know if this is about money or this is about length of the contract here. Cleveland media has assumed Jerome Ford's pay reduction. He agreed to a reconstruction contract, and the Browns saved like $1.38 million or something. And there's assumption, okay, he's guaranteed a roster spot now, and Chubb's time is over. No, I'm not going to say so. I think it makes a lot of sense to bring him back. One, he's a part of that heart of that locker room. Two, he's still got a lot left in the tank. I think he's got 2 or 3 good seasons, as long as he doesn't get hurt, that he can bring to the table. I know what he looked like last year. I know it was a tough sledding, but I think he's going to get back to the kind of player we know he can be if they bring him back on this coming year. My other argument too is you got 2 great running backs you drafted in Quinshon Judkins, which I'm still in heaven remembering that we drafted him. they don't usually draft guys I really want. So that's why it was a big deal to me. And Dylan Sampson, who played for Tennessee last year. Of course, young running backs, they're fresh. They're not as beat up. So you kind of want to send them out there right away. I think if you have Nick Chubb as their mentor and they can play and rest him up too, that is one of your best case scenarios. Because now you have one of the best mentors you could ask for. You have 3. I'll say 4. I'll throw Jerome Ford in there. He is a solid back. He's not bad at all. You have 4 solid backs. I don't think Pierre Strong is going to make the team, but 4 solid backs to work with, game in and game out. It's not bad at all. It takes a lot of pressure off Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett, who is I'm going to say Joe Flacco. That's who I have my money on being the starting quarterback. You get the run game back going. That's going to open play action, which is going to open the pass game, which is going to open the playbook. It's going to open so many things. We've seen Stefanski do that type of thing several times before, especially his first season, some of his second, and then that short time frame we had Joe Flacco. It works. That's the way it is. You get that run game going and become unstoppable, where you could hand it off to any of your 4 running backs and get good yardage. Then that's going to open up the opportunity for receivers too, and then you're making big plays over the top. That's the kind of stuff you could open up with having Nick Chubb back on the team there. I think you have to bring it back for several reasons. I don't like the argument against it. He's not asking for $20 million a year here or anything like that. So I think he just wants a fair contract, maybe even some with incentives, I should say, where if he does well, it reaches a certain point of the season, statistically, he gets more pay. Becomes MVP, he gets $5 more million or something. However that works. That's an option as well. Eli Moore, not Morgan. Duh. I'm thinking of Quincy Morgan. He's been gone from the team for a while. I was in high school when he was off the team. So it's been a while since I've heard that name. Elijah Moore. He's going to the Buffalo Bills there. I wish him well there. I think that's a good system for him. But I thought for sure he was coming back, and he didn't. And I think that's what scares people with this Nick Chubb stuff. They did send Deontay Johnson. Mixed feelings about that. I mean, he was solid in Pittsburgh. He's just trying to make the team at this point. The assumption that he's already on the receiving core for next year, he's got to earn it. You can't just assume that right now. I think the top conversation Cleveland is about Nick Chubb, and then of course it's Shedeur Sanders. And the Guardians come back the other night, they were doing the Shedeur when they were hitting home runs and everything, and putting their fist up in the air and moving it like up and down, cheering for themselves. How these crazy athletes do it sometimes, but they're embracing the Shedeur nature here. But he comes into Cleveland, he talks to the kids, he starts doing some community stuff right off the bat. He starts training in Cleveland too, as he was exploring the city and getting used to it. As far as all that goes, I mean, it's going to keep. The thing I do like, it's going to keep a fun preseason, because what's cool about the preseason is the games don't matter, so you're not it's like the only Browns games you watch where you don't get stressed as long as nobody gets hurt, and with that, it's always fun to see who's going to try to make the roster too in those third, fourth quarters, that third, fourth strings. Okay, Browns first through fourth strings, the excitement will build up at the end with the third and fourth strings coming out with Shedeur Sanders and Dylan. I had the name here. Dylan Gabriel there. And then you're going to see the running backs get their chance. You're going to see Harold Fannin Jr. get his chance in the later rounds there. But that's what's going to make it fun, because some people head out during the late courses like, oh, nobody here's going to make the team. It's not going to interest me. It was just a bad attitude to have. It's one of my favorite types of football games, because again, not only does it not stress me out, but it's still warm outside. You're not freezing your tail off. You're chill at 80-degree weather on Thursday night in Cleveland. But now everybody's going to be glued from the beginning of those preseason games to the end of those preseason games. Okay? And because you're going to want to watch which young quarterback is going to light it up. Mind you, they're going to have the worst part of the offensive line on the team in front of them, the third and fourth strings. Blitzes are always harsh at that point in time in the preseason, because like these third string and fourth string defenses just beat up those O linemen. It's just bad. And so you're going to have that. You're going to have to see these guys make decisions quickly. You're going to have to see them use their feet. And it's going to catch everybody's eye. And everybody's going to be just sitting there watching, being like, okay, who's going to come out near the end of this preseason game and give the fans something to cheer about, in this quarterback room. So there's just going to be eyes glued to the TV the entire game, entire preseason. There's going to be a lot of hype, a lot of talk about the younger talent trying to make the roster, who's going to win what kind of roles on the team and everything. It's going to be interesting. Sounds like, I'm going to throw this out there, trade talk might not be done with the Browns. Okay, there was this report coming out that Miami Dolphins, they are in desperate need of a starting cornerback. They didn't feel like they didn't walk away with enough in the draft. They really want a starting cornerback. There's rumors that they have talked to the Browns in a trade regarding Greg Newsome. Now, this is where it gets interesting. I can see this being realistic, and I also can see this being bogus, but you know how the Browns, they were in talks for Brandon Ayuk for a while, twice, and I'm talking about last year in training camp. I'm talking about right now before the draft, in between draft and free agency. They were in talks with Brandon Ayuk again. They were in talks to potentially draft one of the top wide receivers in the draft, and Travis Hunter. And there was just times they were trying to look to upgrade the second wide receiver, and they didn't grab a wide receiver in this past draft, so they're probably still looking. Okay, I bring it up because rumor has it the trade would involve Greg Newsome going to the Dolphins and Jalen Waddle going to the Browns. And for some people, you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, when did the Browns get the better end of that deal? Because Waddle, Newsome's had a solid first 4 years in Cleveland. Okay, I will say I am a Greg Newsome fan. He might have a bogus play now and then, but for the most part, he's done the job. He's been pretty. He's shut down slot safeties for the most part. Okay, but he's going to look for an extension. Browns aren't sure if they want to meet his asking price, because to them, Emerson is going to be the long-term second cornerback. Okay, and now Waddle and Newsome have their fifth year. They're on their fifth season, so they're going to be looking for a contract extension. They were the same draft. Okay, Dolphins may not have the funds to extend Waddle because he's going to ask for so much more money, whereas the Browns at that time period would. Okay, and so with the Dolphins being locked up in contracts with Tua and with Tyreek Hill and investing more in their defense too, sending Waddle to Cleveland to lock up the opposite side of Jerry Jeudy would be a good look for the Browns. It would just open up the passing game even more. And then the Browns are still set at cornerback, and then Newsome would go to the Dolphins, and Dolphins will probably be more willing to meet his price and his extension, because it'd be cheaper than signing Waddle to an extension, 1, and 2, they're going to be more cap willing to make something work out, especially trading, getting rid of one of their better receivers for him. But I did hear that rumor, and I mean, normally you hear these rumors and go, oh, that's ridiculous. I don't know if that would happen, this would happen. In the world of Andrew Berry, it has happened. In the world of, we did briefly with Ken Dorsey and the Odell Beckham Jr. trade, which I remember just absolutely stunned the world at the time. And then ended up really being for one season of over 1,000 yards. And I will say, 2020, he may have been electric. We saw some they beat the Cowboys because of Odell Beckham. But we didn't really get to see. They lost the trade. Long story short, it just did not pan out. Barry's not against making moves. You're probably not gonna be able to pry another first round pick out of his hands like Houston did, but he will try to maybe meet you at a certain price and make something happen. Browns wide receiver room, other than Deontay Johnson, and now losing more, you have Jerry Jeudy. You still have Cedric Tillman, who, by the way, when he plays very, very well. He just gets injured. That's the problem. You got James Thrash still there. You're inserting another second tight end in the passing game again, especially with the draft pick of Harold Finnan here. So they could use another set of hands, is what I'm saying there. David Bell's still there. I mean, he's been hurt, but he's still there as an option. Yeah, so they definitely could. This is partially. I'm not mad about the Browns trade, but I'm actually for it, especially if it's going to lock up the quarterback situation long term. But that's partially why I wanted Travis Hunter so bad. You established your top 2 wide receivers in a division where Steelers have a good duo, and the Bengals have a good duo. Ravens have an okay duo. You could be right up there in that division. If you fill that wide receiver 2 spot right now. So we'll see. I like Greg Newsome. I wouldn't rule out keeping him, but if Jalen Waddle's on the table for the right price, cannot turn that down. No, absolutely not. But I think you have to bring Nick Chubb back. I think that's mandatory. I have not heard anything on Jedrick Wills. I'm going to guess that he gets a cheap deal from Cleveland, gets a chance to compete, to be on to make the team, I should say. But we'll see. Yeah, so I think after whatever Nick Chubb decides, it's going to be quiet on the Browns end until about training camp there. But overall, we'll hear more about the Shador madness. Gets the team to help sell a bunch of jerseys and make some money on a backup quarterback. I'm not picking at him. That's what he will be when the season starts, no matter what. I think it's going to be Flacco or Pickett's going to be your star. I'm going to say it's Flacco there, but it's just funny all the attention this guy's getting as a 5th-round pick. Cool, too. Gives the Browns, a little bit of hype. Why not? No pressure and a lot of hype. It shouldn't be pressured at all. Kevin Stefanski should be able to work his team any way he can to get them back on their winning ways. I think I worded that a little goofy, but we want to win. They're not going to send a rookie out there week 1 and start winning off the bat. I say let your rookies sit, coach. I'm done for the day. I appreciate you guys listening. Next week, we'll have Baseball Bob back. He can talk to us about Myrtle Beach. We'll talk about Cavs, Pacers playoffs. We're going to be okay, Cavs fans, down 1-0. Hey, we might be tied 1-1 as this is literally being put out there, and I'm speaking. We might even be 1-1 by now. But Cavaliers, playoff basketball. Guardians, baseball. They're playing pretty well right now. So we'll see what happens there. Hey, shout out to the Akron women's lacrosse team, they won the MAC tournament this past weekend. Softball will be playing in Akron for the MAC tournament there this coming weekend. So watch out for the Lady Zips as they go to the big tournament in women's lacrosse there. So that will do it for me. You guys take care. Go out to a baseball game. Enjoy yourselves, unless it's raining. And with all that being said, go Cavaliers. We'll be back next week here on FifthDimensionRadio.com.